and ethical open research. So we're going to start with me, and then we'll move over to Domi. So what we want you to think about with us as we go are three different things. Firstly, philosophy, ideas. What do we mean by open research? So thinking back to Stephen's opening talk, for example. Then practice. What do we do at Hallam? What do you do at your institution in your practice? And then amongst all this, what is the library's role? What do we think the library's role is, and what more might we do? So Domi and I are starting from the idea that research, creating knowledge and sharing knowledge is a public good. It's something that we as universities do, and we should make it accessible, make it transparent, make it equitable. Now, that raises all sorts of challenges and questions generally. Stephen's already alluded to them. The question of what do we mean by research and knowledge? Who gets to define those things? Who is involved and who decides who's involved? At Hallam, in terms of turning those ideals into practice, we're involved in policy development and infrastructure work, as we'll talk about later, but we're also involved in conversations. We're involved in meetings. We're involved in working on different initiatives and ideas. I was just adjusting the input there. Okay, I'll also try and pitch up my voice a little as well. Okay, so we're talking about ideas. What do we think open research is? It's a good thing to do. It's a good way of doing research. It helps us make research more equitable, more transparent, more accessible. It means that we as a library are involved in setting policy, in creating infrastructure, in building people's capabilities. The challenge is, how do we do that? Oh, thank you, Nick. How do we do that? How do we help people develop their capabilities? How do we develop? Right. Some people saying they can't see the slides. Okay, some people can.
I can see the slides.
Okay. Thank you. We'll just carry on.
Yeah.
So what we're going to suggest about the library's role for the rest of the presentation is that we're moving from historically where we might be fairly discrete bits of support at specific points in research. I need to make my paper open access. How do I do that? I'd like to share my data. How do I do that? To being involved in promoting, certainly advocating for open research, but moving beyond that, creating, designing, helping people build their skills, capacities, platforms, tools, and initiatives for open research. Okay. One way of thinking about all this is through the lens of open research culture. So this is the Centre for Open Science Open Research Culture Pyramid. Now, culture is a bit more dynamic and non-linear than the pyramid would suggest, but the diagram does help us to think about different points at which the library research support team might be involved in various conversations and programs around developing open research, meeting those challenges that we've talked about. So we have to make open research possible. We have to make it so that people can do it. So that's building infrastructure, and we'll be talking about that in terms of platforms later on. And we want to make those platforms usable for people. Now, there is a challenge there. One of the challenges around ideas is we want to be open, and we talk about open tools, but maybe some of our tools aren't that open. So what might we do about that? Possibly a question for later. But wherever we're getting our platforms from, we're working with colleagues to make sure that they are usable, that they can use them. Working with our communities, so disciplines, communities of practice, research groups, we're looking at making it normative so that it's a valued ideal, a valued way of doing things. Not that it's compulsory, but that it is valued. We seek to make it rewarding. So here at Hallam and at many institutions, we have an open research award, for example. Colleagues can be recognised through promotions, through grants and so on. So we incentivise it. And it must be reflected in policy. The university must say, we believe in open research, we think it's valuable, we require you to do it. And certainly Hallam has an open research policy. But then that policy has to be reflected in what is actually done at all these different levels. So the university must support the creation of infrastructure, support its staff in developing the skills that are necessary. And there's a big challenge there around resourcing. So when we were thinking about the library research support team's specific role in building that culture, Domi suggested there were three distinct but complementary ways we can think about what we do. On the one hand, we are a steward. So we look after things, we take responsibility for the research ecosystem. So making sure that the platforms, the tools, initiatives are in place, that they are usable, that the material that's created and the research processes that are created can be sustained in the long term, and that the knowledge we create, including institutional knowledge around open research, is preserved and it's made discoverable and is managed over time, preserving its integrity. The library research support team is a facilitator, so that's about people and capabilities. And if you're familiar with the capabilities approach, that's about helping people develop knowledge, skills, and confidence, creating opportunities for people to learn about what open research is and what they might be able to do in their particular area. And finally, the library is an enabler. It's providing those practical foundations that make research possible and make sharing and reuse of research possible. So that's building or buying, developing platforms, developing guidance, infrastructure tools to help people to do open research. And these all interact. And I would suggest an important part of the steward role is taking a critical and reflective, thoughtful approach to our enabling and facilitating. So if something isn't working, if there's a better way of doing something, we then introduce that. So across the research life cycle, across all these different areas, the library research support team is involved, for example, working with colleagues to develop their skills in data management, to support them with what we call responsible context-aware sharing. So making the observation that there are great differences between what's relevant, what's valid in sharing research between an arts researcher, say, and an engineering researcher, and helping colleagues develop the skills to confidently share data where appropriate. We're helping sustain access to research outputs by maintaining the repositories that we use to do that. We're helping people meet different requirements. So our goal is across the research lifecycle, so not just at these discrete points, but becoming an integrated partner in the research process, helping people understand what openness means for them and enabling them to do that. So it's about workflows. It's about where we can fit in the way people do their work. And I'm going to talk briefly about platforms before handing on to Domi to talk about tools and initiatives. So in platforms, we use Elements. Other research information systems are available. So Elements connects to external platforms like ORCID to our staff profiles. So that's being open and transparent because it's sharing information about colleagues, about the work they do, the projects they're involved in, and also by connecting to our repository, we're also making the work available through rights retention and other open access policies. More and more people can come to staff profile, click on a link to Shura, our repository, and read and use the work that people create. They can also share their data through the data archive, working with us to make sure that's done in an appropriate and relevant way. So we have all these different platforms to enable people to create and curate a record of their work and their outputs and then communicate that to wider communities. And a very important part of what we do is to help people use those platforms in an informed way. So it's not just, oh, you need to share your work and data to comply with requirements. Here's how it helps you do your research, make it accessible. And I'm going to hand over to Domi now to talk about some tools and initiatives to do with that.
Thank you for the headsets. So the tools, our team has designed a tailored version of the data management plan for to actively promote an open research approach from the very beginning of the project. So rather than treating data management as an admin requirement, the form is designed to encourage researchers to think early about openness, transparency, accessibility, before the data collection even begins. So you can see our DMP feedback form on this slide. This is structured to provide the both quick and detailed guidance, make it easier for researchers to engage with key considerations, and each stage of the forum focuses on a specific aspect of data management, such as storage, sharing, ethics, documentation, and preservation. And that should help to break down these complex requirements into manageable decisions. So by embedding prompts around open research principles throughout this forum, it should support researchers in making that more informed decisions and choices about how their data can be responsibly shared and reused. In doing so, I think the DMP becomes not just a compliance task, but we want it to be the starting point for a good research practice and open research thinking as well. So you can see the key considerations around data management also include exploring open licensing and data sharing options, helping researchers make informed decisions about how their work can be reused. And this includes explaining what open data really means in practice and how different levels of openness can affect visibility, impact, and reuse. And we guide researchers through considerations of quality, ethics, responsibility, and all that to ensure that decisions about openness are balanced with privacy, consent, and the disciplinary standards as well. So this brings ethical reflection into the planning process really early on, making that core part of the data management rather than just something added later. So we also signpost researchers in this forum to appropriate research storage solutions, ensuring that data is securely managed through the project and also correctly prepared for the long-term preservation or sharing where appropriate. So in this way, I think the MP process supports not only compliance, but it's also a good practice in building that transparent, ethical, and reusable research from the very beginning. We also see trust as something that is built through everyday research practices. So helping researchers understand how transparency, good documentation, responsible data handling, how that all can enhance the integrity and credibility of their work. So accessibility, for example, that's important consideration where we support researchers in thinking from the outset about how others might find, understand, and make use of their data and outputs. We also support thinking about collaboration, so highlighting how clear data structures, permissions, sharing plans, how that all can really enable safer and more effective partnerships working across teams and institutions, other research partners. We also guide researchers in creating high quality metadata, ensuring that data is well described, discoverable, reusable in the future as well. And finally, we help researchers navigate compliance. So making sure that their plans align with institutional policies, ethical standards, funders requirements, while still supporting meaningful openness whenever that is possible. Now, it's really fascinating, the new initiative that we'll be launching from the new academic year. We are currently developing a series of fair design clinics. So the aim is to create something practical, something relevant to researchers' day-to-day work, and rather than just simply discussing open research in theory. So we are trying to move beyond the traditional support model. So instead of the library being seen only as a service provider, we want to work alongside researchers as partners through guidance, discussions, shared learning opportunities. So our Open Research Champions Network here at Sheffield Hallam University, they will play a key role in shaping the program. They bring in together researchers from different disciplines, which helps to ensure the clinics reflect a really wide range of perspective and research context as well. So a central focus is bringing that theory and practice together. The FAIR principles can sometimes feel abstract, so these sessions will be discussion-led and hands-on, giving researchers space to test ideas, share experiences, explore the FAIR, how does it look like in their own discipline. Alongside the FAIR clinics, we are also planning to deliver workshop focused on care principles, because these recognize that responsible open research is not just about accessibility and reuse, but it's also about ethics, accountability, and it's about relationships as well when we think about research participants. And we hope that all these sessions will encourage reflections on issues as power dynamics, consent, community ownerships, equity. Particularly, we're working with sensitive data and community engaged research. So together, the FAIR and CARE workshops will aim to support a more balanced approach, I would say, to research planning, one that places openness and responsibility side by side, I would say. So they create opportunities for conversation, that shared learning, and potentially maybe even new research collaborations as well. So I've drafted a slide to show you how we are planning those workshops. We've started putting together the FAIR Design Clinic series first. And as I mentioned, we're planning to launch that in the new academic year. The idea is to follow the research journey as it naturally unfolds, starting with pre-registration and then moving through the key decisions and practices that researchers encounter throughout the whole research project. So there have already been a very positive response from the Open Research Champions Network. So colleagues from biosciences, chemistry, and Sheffield Business School, they're all interested in being involved in the first session. And that mix is really important. This is what we are aiming for, because it's not just about representing different disciplines. It's about bringing different perspectives and way of thinking into the same conversation. So as the series develops, we are keen to involve colleagues from across the university so that it remains broad, relevant, genuinely interdisciplinary. In fact, the second workshop is already taking shape. We'll be working with a colleague from computing who will be leading on the data management and open source practice, who's been the guest of the Open Research podcast. So the format is also a key part of what we are trying to achieve. So these won't be lecture style sessions. Instead, we want them to be the hands-on workshop where people can discuss challenges, they can share experiences, they can test ideas and work through practical examples all together. So alongside the workshops, we will be developing supporting materials. We will be putting some evaluation measures in place so we can also understand as the library what's working well and where the program is having the greatest impact as it grows. So as research librarians, I would see that we see our roles as facilitators, enablers, what Pete just mentioned in his slides, and increasingly partners in the research process. So a big part of that is helping to build and sustain the infrastructure that supports the open research, and whether that is repositories, data management systems, or other research tools, we are involved in making sure that the foundations are in place and that they are aligned with the open research principles. But it's not just about the system itself. It's really important to say that it's also about helping researchers use them effectively. So we spend a lot of time supporting people to navigate platforms, workflows, processes, with the aim of making open research feel like a natural part of research practice rather than additional burden, for example. So we're also focused on building skills and confidence, and through training, guidance, workshops, and those ongoing conversations, we help researchers engage in ways that are meaningful and relevant. So overall, what we offer, I think it goes beyond services. We want to bring experience, hands-on support, and collaborative way of working, partnering with researchers to reimagine openness in the ways that make open research sustainable throughout the whole research life cycle. I will put my headsets off and share the room and the microphone with Pete now. Thank you very much for listening. We are more than happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.